Hello, everyone. I hope I find you well. And it seems we're still receiving so many people. People are still joining in the meeting. So welcome to the IDF Advocacy Academy session, an exclusive session which aims to provide capacity building expertise for all people. Like I'm talking about young leaders in diabetes, Blue Cycle Voices, and also IDF members, which I'm referring to that the IDF members all over the world. I mean, there are over 250. So we expect that our meeting is going to have so many people. So Bruno, if you can maybe move to the next slide. So maybe before I start, the session for today is called Advocacy and How to Use the Data. I would like to start with giving or maybe reading out the housekeeping rules. Maybe if everybody could maybe rename him or herself by putting on the name, the country, the role, if you're a young leader in diabetes, Blue Cycle Voice member, or an IDF member, so that would know how many people attended and which categories are being represented, because we are expecting about 3 categories in our meeting. And please remember that our meeting is being recorded, and I think everybody has accepted that, because we're going to record, because there are other people that are not watching right now that would have to watch the pre-recorded, which will be released. It will be available on the IDF YouTube channel a few seconds or a few minutes after the meeting. And also you can activate your Zoom generated subtitles. You can see it by the closed caption button on your screen. Maybe you're using a laptop, it would show captions. And if you're using a mobile phone, but you'd see it on the bottom of your Zoom window. So please note that these subtitles, maybe they're already appearing on your screen, they will not be 100%, you should be warned. And please use the chat function to share the questions to the speakers. Whenever someone is speaking about the advocacy, when we're going to have so many people speaking, just so you don't forget, you might need to just share your questions, and then would have to check them again during the question and answer or the Q&A to ask your question, and we might even ask you to raise your hand. And yeah, the recording slides and everything else will be available. So Bruno, if you can move to the next slide. So we'll start with the first pool, because we want to collect as much data as we can. And we hope that everybody's going to participate. If we can have the first pool, Bruno. So I believe everyone can see the screen. Thank you so much. We're expecting that everybody in this meeting is going to participate on this one. And remember, after you respond to the first poll, please close the screen of the poll, because it might keep on your screen and you might not notice it. So if you respond, please close it. Thank you. And I hope it's not too much for you. If everyone can respond, that'll be great. Thank you. And if you are facing any challenges or any difficulties, maybe share in this chat. Our colleagues will also take care of that, and we'll see how best we can address it. So I'm seeing that 73% of the participants here have responded. So which means we still have other people who haven't yet responded. I don't know if they're still trying to figure out which region they belong to. And I think this one is going to be the easiest. Thank you. Awesome. Right, so for the sake of our time, allow me to just give you a brief background to say like what the IDF Advocacy Academy means. So the IDF Advocacy Academy, it's something that is bringing tools and resources to empower diabetes advocates. It is the IDF split that these resources are used to put the compelling diabetes case to the police members and to convince them to take action. So the IDF advocacy team, which consists of Bruno, Bear, and Days, they're going to be organizing these capacity building sessions on a variety of topics. The first one, it was on project planning and implementation. And today we're focusing on advocacy and how to use the data. So these sessions are really mostly or targeting the IDF members, Blue Cycle Voices, and young leaders in diabetes, which I hope everyone is part of these categories. So thank you so much. And if we can move to the next slide. So without further ado, allow me to introduce to you our speakers for these category or this. I mean, we are moving on to the next session that is very important. And we're going to have Bear and Bruno sharing to us like what advocacy is and what it is not. So, and I will leave the floor to Bruno and Bear. Over to you.
Hello, Tino, and great to see many people online. Yeah, I have been seeing on the previous survey that we have people from almost all of the IDF regions. I think we're only missing Western Pacific. I think it may be too late for them, and also South and Central America, and I think it may be too early for them. We're actually changing the times of these sessions just to try to accommodate people live as much as possible, but as you know, this session will be at the IDF YouTube channel very soon. So, well, I think most of you know me already. I'm Beatriz, and I'm the IDF Advocacy Manager, and I'm here with my colleague, Bruno.
Thank you, Bear. It's always a pleasure to be here with so many dear people. And what we are trying to do today, and we hope we succeed, is using a different format of our Advocacy Academy capacity building sessions on making this as more interactive as possible. So we kindly invite everyone after this session to answer the survey and provide feedback so we can always improve to guarantee that you are happy, you are satisfied, and we are able to match your expectations. So without further ado, I would like to run another poll to check your knowledge regarding advocacy. So I would like to know if you think you know what is advocacy. So if you could please vote, I would much appreciate that.
So yeah, we wanted to start with this question because, I mean, Bruno and I have been working on advocacy on the IDF advocacy team for a few years now. And we have realized that a lot of people actually use advocacy for activities that are not always advocacy. So actually, we're going to focus the next few minutes on trying to explain what is the difference between advocacy and things that are not advocacy, and also how you can integrate advocacy components to other type of projects. Looks like everyone knows what is advocacy, right, Bruno?
Yeah, we are still waiting for another 10 people to vote.
Please don't be shy. It's completely anonymous, so we will not know. If you say no, we will not know who that was.
And it's completely fine, right? That's the idea of this session.
That's the point of this session.
Okay, so since I think some people are shy, I'm just gonna... Great. I hope there's no chance after the end of the session. So
that's it.
Let's share the result for everyone. So we had 14 people voted. From those, 13 said that they know. Yes, they know what advocacy is, and one person said that she or he doesn't know. So the next question that I would like to ask you. So diabetes summer camp to improve the education of young children living with diabetes. Is this advocacy or not?
Okay, so now we're going to test you. Most of you said you know what is advocacy. So, well, please vote on this question and we will tell you whether it is advocacy or not at the end of the session. Well, we have a bit of, yeah, it's pretty much 50-50, 6 versus 7. Okay. Okay, good. More people are voting now than before. Thank you, guys. We want to make this interactive, so the more you vote, the better.
Okay, so let's share the results. So 42%, 8 people said that yes, it is an advocacy activity, and 11 people, 58% said it's not. And then the last question for this part. Diabetes screening campaign during the Diabetes Awareness Month. Is this advocacy or not?
Okay, so again, we have a very similar number of responses, although more people are now voting for yes, it is an advocacy activity than for no. Okay, 18 responses already. Come on, guys, we made it to 19 responses before. We're missing at least one person to get to the same number. Okay, let's leave it there.
Okay, sure. So sharing the results now. So 12 people, 67% said yes, it is an advocacy activity, and 6 people said it's not. So let's go with Bea through the content to figure it out if it is or it's not advocacy. Bea, over to you.
Perfect. So yeah, we had our small surveys. So now let's actually see what is advocacy. So advocacy is any action by an individual or preferably a group, which is always better, that aims to influence decision. And these decisions are mainly economic, social, and political. In the context of diabetes, so what we are speaking about today, advocacy are all the actions that people can do to ultimately influence all the policies that can have a positive impact on people who currently live with diabetes and on those people who are at risk of developing it. Of course, you can imagine that this policy change, so making to that last step takes a lot of time. All the steps to achieve that ultimate goal, everything that you do to achieve that is advocacy. And the main target audience for all the advocacy activities will be policymakers or anyone with decision power, anyone who could actually make a change in this type of policies. We also target many times people who could influence these policymakers or people with decision power. So we can say that advocacy is about generating, between brackets, policy change. So it's about generating change to improve situations that are not fair for all. So we know, especially when it comes to access to care, diagnosis also, that the current situation is not fair for many people living with diabetes, who do not have access to the care they need, who many times even do not have any diagnosis because they do not have access to that. So diabetes advocacy will be about generating this change to improve situation for those people. Examples of advocacy activities. So all of these are things that we do, Bruno and I, as part of the IDF advocacy team. So for example, one activity could be a campaign to gather citizen signatures to ask governments to create or to improve a specific diabetes policy. Another type of advocacy activity could be a campaign on social media, which is very useful for advocacy, asking policymakers to provide better access to diabetes care in their countries, regions, or cities, depending on the level. So we had two examples at the beginning of this section that we shared with you. So we were talking about diabetes summer camps to improve the diabetes education in young children living with diabetes. That was one example. And the other one was a diabetes screening campaign during Diabetes Awareness Month to educate people and to inform them. So are they advocacy or are they not advocacy? They are not advocacy, actually, because the way they are formulated, they do not have any component aiming at influencing policy change. So we are talking about a diabetes summer camp, which, okay, is going to have a great impact in the children that are there, but just with the diabetes summer camp, you are not doing anything to actually influence policy change. Also with the diabetes screening campaign, that can be great to, obviously, maybe diagnose some people, to inform and educate people that go to where you are doing the screening to get more information, but it will not by itself result in any policy change. So another question, Bruno?
So now that we shared the concept and we clarified the two previous polls, I'm gonna pull up a new one and let's assess. So in this pool, we have 4 different examples that you need to answer if it's advocacy or not. So I'm not gonna read them, you just read the 4 examples and vote yes or no for each of them, please.
Okay, so we're going to give you a bit more time because obviously you need to read 4 different questions now, but okay. 6 people have already voted. Advocacy or not. Okay, and so far 7 people. So far everyone thinks the same. Okay, good, 10 people. Oh, again, everyone agrees now, Bruno. Perfect, 13 people. Good. Okay, 14, 15. Okay, we're going to give you a couple more seconds and then we're going to move to the following slides. 16 people. Ah, great. Okay, Bruno, I think it's working, the polls. I think we need to do this again. It's making the session more interactive. Okay.
Next time, let's play some songs there, like trivia song. Okay, so we're still missing 3 people. Do you think that, 20, nice.
20.
Out of 20, sure.
Perfect.
Okay. I'm gonna close the pool and share the result. So we have the first, so I'm gonna read out loud the example and so meeting your mayor to request the implementation of local diabetes education groups. Yes, 100%. So 20 people voted that yes, this is an advocacy activity. Social media together citizens' signature asking the government to improve access to diabetes supplies. Again, 100% said answer yes, it is an advocacy activity. Youth camp to train children on how to monitor their diabetes. Again, 100%, 20 people said no, is not an advocacy activity. And on the last one, there was one person that said that event to screen for type 2 diabetes cases and diabetes-related complications and to share diabetes education with attendees. Yeah, it is an advocacy activity, and 19 people said it's not. So Bea, over to you, so you can comment on this.
So yeah, I mean, very clearly you have guessed almost everything. So the first two questions, the first two examples were actually advocacy activities, because while you're meeting with a policymaker to ask for local diabetes education groups. It doesn't need to be a policy, because you need to start from something small, but you can start by asking someone to set local diabetes education groups, or some small things that is going to make the life of people with diabetes better. That is advocacy. The same as the second example, because actually it's about asking the government to improve access to whatever, in this case, diabetes supplies, but it could have been to anything else regarding diabetes. The third example, again, we're talking about youth camps to train children on how to monitor their diabetes. So again, by itself, this is not an advocacy activity. And for the fourth example, in which we had one person that had said yes and the rest no, it is not an advocacy activity. So we're talking about an event to screen for type 2 diabetes and to share education with the attendees. So by itself, this is not going to generate any policy change. So we do not consider this as an advocacy activity. But it's normally very easy to add advocacy components to awareness or education activities. So for example, the example that we had about a youth camp to train children on how to monitor the diabetes. One thing that you can do is to survey the children before the camp and after the camp to actually track the positive impact that the education that you provided during the camp had in their diabetes management. And then you could go with that information to relevant policymakers to say, hey, actually, if we do these youth diabetes camps, the diabetes management results get much better. So this is something that you need to invest on, and you need to maybe develop a policy to encourage the creation of these youth camps. So if you add this component, you will be making this activity, which is in principle an education activity, you will be adding this advocacy component. And then the second example that we had was this event to screen for type 2 diabetes. You can invite policymakers to the event, and you are already making it advocacy by inviting people that could actually have an impact in policy development. And also one thing that you can do is to request a meeting after this event with policymakers to share all the highlights from this event. So how many new cases of diabetes or complications you identified, and also to ask them to act from their side to improve the prevention of type 2 diabetes and also the screening for type 2 diabetes and its complications. And finally, which activities are more important? It really doesn't matter. So many of you ask us, okay, what should I choose for my project, especially the young leaders in diabetes, because all of you need to be working on one. It's up to you. All activities and all the projects are important. And it's very important that for any project that you do, you choose a topic that is interesting for you. Otherwise, it's going to be very frustrating to be working on something that you don't really like. So we really recommend you to choose whatever really is important for you. But everything is interconnected. So you have seen that by making some small changes and adding a few things, you can make an awareness or an education activity an advocacy one. So we really encourage you to try to make this connection, and especially for the YLD diabetes project. So even if you do not want to make a project which is only about advocacy, you can make this little addition to make it a bit more about advocacy and not only about education or awareness. As you know, at the end of this session, we're going to have a Q&A, and you're going to be able actually to open your microphone. So please remember to write on the chat. We have one of our colleagues, Manon, who is monitoring everything. So if you have a question for us, just write that on the chat. And also we would like to hear from you. So if you have been involved in any advocacy activities, can you please let us know? Do you want to speak a bit about that briefly at the end of this session? Also, does your country have any type of policies to address are the main issues on diabetes care? If there are policies, are they implemented? Do you think they work? So yeah, we're very much looking forward to hearing from you. And actually, Tino, we have chosen you as the moderator of this event because we know, Tino, that you have a lot of experience in advocacy in your country. So yeah, we wanted also for you to comment on your experience in Zimbabwe very briefly. So Tino, up to you, and yeah, then we will be moving to the next section of this session. Thank you, Tino.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share, not just to moderate, but also to share my experience on this topic that is very, very close to my heart, advocacy. Thank you so much. Right, so basically, I think almost every country has got different approaches on which they use to advocate for different things. In Zimbabwe, I believe our system is a bit hostile. You cannot be seen in the streets marching with people with placards like the things we usually see in the US, saying we demand this. So because of course we'll be targeting the policymakers because those are the people with the influence. You cannot do that. You can actually get arrested because everything is being turned into politics. But I think one of the things that I've always been able to do with the other people, with the help of other people, is to prepare like a petition. You draft it, but the first thing that you need to do, you need to really know the things that the policymakers are doing, where they're failing. Like if you can start, like if you research, you need to really know the tools. You need to have the tools at your fingertips to know what is going on and where they are falling short and what it is that needs to be changed. That kind of a thing. So if you have the resources, you've done your research very well, you can actually prepare a petition that will be compelling, it will be convincing. So in that case, if you prepare it very well, the policymakers would want to support it because if you say, for example, one of the things to say, okay, if we have enough resources or access to care for people living with diabetes, if everything is okay, if everything is available for people living with diabetes, then I think the government can actually spend less on hospitalizations, ICU, intensive care, that kind of a thing. So in that case, it shows that the policymakers or the people that are responsible, the leaders in whatever country, they'll see that I think if we take this approach, don't be like in a way you want to say you're against them, but then I think you have to sort of like thank them for whatever that is they're doing, whatever that is they're trying to do, and then also try to say, okay, fine, if we do this ABCD, I think we can achieve 1, 2, 3 things. But I think the nicest thing to do is to do your research. I know we have a lot of experiences and there's so many people that are in this meeting that will have amazing, amazing things to share. People that have been doing these things because I believe we are stronger together. We learn from each other. And these are some of the things that I've been doing in my country to do advocacy since I started in 2019, and I'm still learning a lot. I mean, I cannot say that what I'm saying is everything, but there are so many things because the thing is just to target the policymakers. If you can be friends with them. And the good thing about me now is I am friends with the deputy minister. So usually I get invited, he says, okay, fine, you can actually come to our office. And then such things, I think we can use those leverages for our benefit so that people living with diabetes can see so many different things. But I mean, as well, I say that it's all about politics. There's so much politics that is involved. Yes, some of the things you might be promised, things that will not even seem to being implemented. But I think if you start to do that, if you establish like a relationship, I think things can actually go well, and then find other people that are doing things that you're doing within your community and build lineages, and then try to use those people, like those resources, so that you can drive the force that you need. And for example, which I believe we are going to hear from during our session, I think if we can have the next slide, please, before I introduce the next speaker. Right, so as I said, you need to have tools to do your advocacy. So at this juncture, please allow me to introduce to you our extraordinary Evie, who is going to share with us some of the tools that IDF has at its fingertips that everyone in this meeting can actually use she's going to talk about the IDF Atlas, which I believe most of you have already used it, but some haven't. Anyways, I'll leave everything to Evie to take us through. So Evie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tino. Thank you very much. And thank you, Ben, Bruno, and the participants for joining this session. I am Paraskevi Salpea, Evie is my name, and I am the epidemiology manager of IDF. One of the main projects of the epidemiology team in the IDF is the IDF Diabetes Atlas. So I'm here today to talk about the Atlas and how to search the IDF Diabetes Atlas data, how to use the Atlas resources. And as Tino mentioned, this is important because you learn how to do advocacy activities and pursue policy changes. But I think having real numbers of the situation of diabetes today in the world is very important tool. And unfortunately, the numbers on diabetes are alarming, but at least this can help advocates to strengthen their case when they pursue policy changes for people with diabetes. So let me go in the topic. Yes, we will start also with a poll for the Atlas to see how many people read the Atlas, if you know some big numbers about the Atlas, and then I will introduce the Atlas. So you can see the first question. Have you read the Atlas? It's doing well. I'm happy that more than 75% have read the Atlas. So that makes my presentation easier. Already 15 people have replied. If you haven't replied, please just vote yes or no if you have ever used the IDF Diabetes Atlas. I think it's stable. It's like more than 75%, 3 out of 4. So I think it's good. So we are 80% almost now at the end of the poll. So even better. That's great. I'm happy that most of you have used the Atlas data, and I hope after today's presentation, you will be able to explore more than you have already done. And we can go to the next question. So the next is to test a little bit your knowledge on the data. It's how many people in the world have diabetes. So feel free to take the poll. There's many choices here. "16 people have replied already." Yeah, more. We are not far from the truth, I see here. It's doing well. So thank you, 18 people replied. And yeah, you will explore the right answer after I start my talk, but you're not, yes, far from what is the reality out there. But yeah, as you will see from here, from the poll already, the numbers are alarming. So we can continue with the presentation. Like I said, today I will introduce the IDF Diabetes Atlas. It's a project of the IDF, one of the longest projects. It runs for 20 years. The first Atlas was launched in 2000, and the latest was in 2021, the 10th edition. As you know, most of you, delivers essential information on diabetes impact worldwide. It is produced by the IDF, and it's very important that it's guided by a committee of experts in the field of diabetes and epidemiology. It's one of the most cited books on diabetes impact. Every Atlas book has more than 250,000 downloads per edition. Every Atlas is usually published with a scientific publication, and this is very important to credit the results and the methodology of the Atlas. And every publication gets more than 4,000 citations, which is a very high citation rate for scientific publication. And very important, all these are freely available online. So this information is out there, and you can download all of the resources for free. So we can go next. I know it's difficult to remember, but I just wanted to list what is in the IDF Diabetes Atlas. Probably you already know some of them. Of course, how many people in the world have diabetes prevalence. We give that on a global, regional, per country. Also, we have this data for between urban, rural for comparison, male, female. And we also do projections in the future. So we project the numbers to 2030 and 2045. So how is the situation looks right now, but how it will look in the future. How many people are unaware of their condition, undiagnosed diabetes? How many new cases of diabetes we have every year, diabetes incidence? Of course, we give the numbers to other indicators such as specific type 1 diabetes in children, adolescents, and recently adult onset type 1 diabetes. Of course, we give the numbers of pre-diabetes, what we are in the IDF describe as impaired glucose tolerance and impaired fasting glucose. Hyperglycemia in pregnancy, which includes GDM, gestational diabetes, and also other aspects of diabetes impact worldwide, which is the diabetes-related mortality and diabetes-related healthcare expenditure. Also, these are important numbers when you use for any kind of campaign to advocate for people with diabetes in policymakers. In every Atlas edition, we also have some related topics. Sometimes it's diabetes complication, very important aspect of the people with diabetes. Diabetes in specific populations. For example, recently we had a report on indigenous people. And next, for diabetes management and prevention and access to medicines. We can go to the next. So before I go to show you how to explore the data, what do we offer with the Atlas? We offer the book that is launched. Here you can see the 10th edition. We have a dedicated website that I will soon go to it and show you how to find the data, and the data portal, which is a direct access into the data of the Atlas. So if you don't want to go through the book and you have a specific question about the data or a specific inquiry, you just go there and explore it. We can go next, so I can have more time to show you the data. So we are going to take a quick poll on some data of the Atlas before I show you how to find the Atlas data. So we can assess your knowledge, but then the questions you're going to see now in the poll, later when I will show you the data in the website, you can find these answers. So you can see the first question, and you can make some guesses here. Please feel free to answer how much you think the number of people with diabetes have increased the last 20 years. That's a good thing, because Atlas is a project that runs for 20 years. So now we can use the numbers from every edition and see the trend. So how this situation have evolved. So let's say from the first edition, where we are today, 20 years later, how many more people have diabetes? I think 14 people already have answered. We can maybe move to the next question. I hope my showcase of the Atlas data and the website will be as effective as Bea's and Bruno's talk. So after this showcase today, you will be able to find the right answers on these questions. The next is just a statement, which statement is false or from the following. And this is more to see if you are aware of what kind of data we give in the Atlas, like the list that I just gave you before. The question was which statement is false, is not true. So which of these sentences is not included in the Atlas? So we have 16 people already replied. We can maybe move to the next. So when I will present you the data shortly, I will give you the answers to those questions while I'm showing the data. So the next poll question is on the screen is how many people are unaware of their condition of diabetes? And this is what we always describe as undiagnosed diabetes. Of course, these numbers also vary by region. So always can be different from region to region. This is for global numbers. So "17 people replied. That's great. I think we have one more question or not. We can move to that as well. And then I hope you'll get your answers soon. So before I go into the Atlas, I just wanted briefly to show you some examples of how the data look in the Atlas book, or if you go to the presentation or to the other resources. Here is, for example, a graph that we have in the Atlas that shows the trend, how the number of people of diabetes have increased the last 20 years. So on the left, we see 151 million people on the first edition of the Atlas in 2000. And this was one of the questions. Today, we have more than 500 million, 537 million. So in 20 years, we had the number of people with diabetes more than tripled. Like I said, these are alarming numbers. This is very unfortunate for the diabetes impact worldwide, but at least these numbers can help, strengthen your advocacy campaign. So the numbers are so alarming that, you can turn heads there when you address to policymakers. Here is on the right side, a map that you can see how the number of the prevalence, the proportion of people with diabetes is distributed around the world. So these are some examples of how the data look. So maybe we can go next and go into the data. You will see also this as well when I will show you the showcase, but this is another thing that we offer in the Atlas. We also offer key messages. So you can just go to the website, go to the resources, and find key messages that you can use on your campaigns. For example, 1 in 10 people in the world have diabetes. 1 in 2, that was also a question, are unaware of their condition. They don't know they have diabetes. 1 in 6 births, live births, are affected by gestational diabetes. More than 11% of global health expenditure is spent on diabetes. So these are key messages that you can find in the Atlas resources and use for your activities and campaigns. So I think now we can go and I can share my screen and try to help you to dig deep into the Atlas website. So you can see my screen. So this is the dedicated website to the Diabetes Atlas, diabetesatlas.org. So first of all, when you enter the page, you see the main key messages from the latest IDF Atlas 10th edition in 2021. So immediately you can extract some key messages, people with diabetes per region, proportion of people with diabetes, low and middle income countries. But let's go now to show you what is available. First of all, you go to the resources and you have all the resources that we provide with the Atlas. Immediately, you can access the IDF Diabetes Atlas, the book, and download it for free. You can access fact sets. The fact sets is summaries for the data per region. So, of course, on a global level as well, but per region, you can download these fact sets and have all the data, let's say for Africa, top 10 countries with diabetes in Africa, what is the prevalence per country, like I said, key messages that you can use on your campaign. So these are a couple of examples of the fact sets in the Atlas resources. What we also provide is a PowerPoint presentation, can be downloaded. You can use the slides from the presentation for your campaign, for your activities. Another resource that we have is the scientific papers and publications. All the scientific papers that are published with the Atlas, you can also use them and cite them. All the previous editions, if you want to go to a specific past edition, we have, like I said, estimates provided since 2000. And all these are on the resources page. I want to take a minute to tell you that recently we start changing the Atlas report, and we are also releasing specific topics every year. So we released some topics in 2022. We call them 2022 reports. These were specifically for people with diabetes in indigenous peoples, food-related complications, type 1 diabetes across all age groups, and diabetes and COVID-19. These are the latest data. You can download them for free, these reports, and read the data for the situation around the world and extract the data you need for your activities. Now, I think it's very important that if you don't want to go through the whole book of the Atlas to find the data, what we are doing is we have the data portal. You can see it here. If you open the data portal, you can access directly the topic of interest and without having to go through the book. All the data of the book are here, and we also provide the data from previous edition in order to be able to check the trend and make your comment on how the diabetes situation have evolved. What you can do, first of all, you can go by region. So let's say you're interested to describe the situation per region in Africa. So you can go here and see all the diabetes indicators are there in the Atlas. People with diabetes in the world, impaired glucose tolerance, impaired fasting glucose, pre-diabetes, mortality related to diabetes. So all the indicators for the region of Africa, 2021, the 10th edition. For comparison, we have here the numbers for you from the first edition, in the middle from the 5th edition, 2011, but also you can see the projection of how the situation will be in 2030, 2045. And that's not only per region, but you can find this data global, on a global scale. And also, very importantly, you can go and search directly for your country. So let's say, for example, I am in Australia and I want to find the diabetes indicators in Australia. So you go directly there and you have here all the estimates of the IDF Diabetes Atlas from the first edition, from the 5th edition, the latest, the 2021, projections to 2030 and 2045 for all the numbers that we are giving estimates. And this depends on what is your activity. If your activity is in general for people with diabetes, you can go here and comment. We had 780,000 people with diabetes in 2000. This more than double in 2021 in Australia, almost 1.5 million in 2021. If you are interested of kids with type 1 diabetes, so then you can go and check the type 1 diabetes in children and adolescents and see that we had 3.4 thousand in the first edition, and then see how many there were in the latest edition and make a comment. Here, I want to tell you that when you see gaps on the data, is that, yes, unfortunately, we don't have all the indicators for all the countries for all the years. So the main data points, let's say, for example, how many people have diabetes, how many people have pre-diabetes, usually we give them for all the years. So you can extract this data immediately, download them, create your graphs, use the graphs that we already provide. These are all resources that you can use and have on your activities when you are advocating for changes for people with diabetes. So all these data are here. You can. The last thing I want to comment, and then I want to leave the time for questions and experiences. You can go by indicators. So if you're not interested in a country, but you are in general interested about people with type 1 diabetes, and let's say for children 0 to 14 years old, so you just go and read all the data for this category, kids with type 1 diabetes, around the world, per region, per country, 2021, and you can download, like I said, always this data and use the figures. So this is very short explanation of how to use the data. I think the best way is to go to the data portal and, let's say, play with it. You can just try to find the data, spend some time here, and you can see the capacity of this tool and how many things you can extract from here. Before I close, I want to tell you that in the main Atlas website, you can find any questions that you might have. You can find the contact information. At the end of the Atlas, you can see webpage, atlas@idf.org. And if you have any questions, send them to us. We reply to all the emails. And actually, we are happy to take your questions and address them as much as possible, or provide you as well with the data to help you on any kind of activities that you are working on. So I want to stop here and leave the rest of the time for questions and discussions. So Tino, is to you. And thank you for following.
Thank you so much, Evie, for the amazing presentation. And I believe, everybody, please be reminded that this session was recorded, and you can even go and rewatch in case you missed some of the details. But in this juncture, we would like to, for you, everybody, if Bruno, you can stop sharing the screen and everybody can turn on their webcam. It always gives some authenticity when you're seeing you discussing, sharing your ideas, your points, commenting, asking questions. Yeah, but we also love for you to share your experiences on this advocacy, because I believe so many of us here in this meeting have had some amazing things that they've done within their own communities. So if you'd like to share your screen, to share your webcam, please turn on your webcam, but remain on mute, unless if you are asked to share your points. I'm only seeing a few videos. Thank you. Amazing faces, familiar faces, which is great. Right, so we had so many other people who shared their own experiences, and we have those questions, and we would like to invite some of you to share them live so that people can see you sharing it. And also maybe there are other people who would like to share. We only have about 30 minutes to do so. You can even raise your hand. We will take you, provided the time is still available. So to start with, I will just have to go and share, I think that was Anita. You had a question on yes, the glucose strips. We once shared so much about it, but we would like to hear more about it. So if you could share with us. Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, so we are currently working on glucose strips coverage through our national insurance in the country. Currently, our national insurance covered for our insulin, lab works, and medical consultation, but not glucose strips. We're working on it, but when we've collaborated already with the community, and we are asking for a schedule from the parliament. And a few weeks back, there's some party approached us and asked us to postpone the plan because they said that they want to carry our plan in the next presidential election. So the question is, should I postpone it or should I still move forward?
Okay, I'm happy to take that one. I think if there are going to be elections soon, it's actually the perfect moment for advocacy because policymakers are going to be very happy to speak with you, either because they are going to be elected again and they want to actually get to there, or because they want to be elected for the first time. So this is a great occasion for you to be reaching to all the different political parties that could be in the government to present your campaign and what you want to do. So Evie was just explaining how you can find information about diabetes prevalence, numbers, expenditure, etc. in your country. You can actually take all that information and go to all different political parties and tell them, look, this is the situation. If you are working with more people, that would be great because you could even do something on social media. So this is the situation in your country. What is the plan of your party, of your political party, for healthcare and for diabetes care in particular? So I think it would be great if you actually mobilize that power, if you get more people in your community to be asking the same question, okay, what do you plan on doing for people living with diabetes? It's definitely the best moment to speak with parliamentarians because they are going to be very receptive. So yeah, we encourage you to do it. Obviously not forgetting about other priorities that may be in your country. So okay, test strips are obviously super important, but maybe there are other things that you also want to bear in mind and have into account. But yeah, we encourage you definitely to do that. Also, maybe check what is happening in the countries around you. So what is the situation of diabetes in the neighboring countries? Because sometimes it's also good to bear that in mind. Okay, so in this country, which is very similar to ours, they have a better situation than in our country. So why are we not improving? Also very important to use financial messages, because of course governments care a lot about money. That's something that they will definitely pay attention to. So if you can present figures from the Atlas on, okay, our country is spending this, and actually if you improve the care for people living with diabetes and education, etc., we could decrease this expenditure because we will be preventing complications and the life of people with diabetes. That's a very powerful message to merge the lived experience with the financial experience. So definitely we encourage you to do that. And please, Anita, let us know how it goes, because we always want to come back. And it would be great if you come back to us in 2 months saying, hey, we managed to have, I don't know, X number of meetings, and there was a party who promised to support us. Let us know, because I think it would be very good also for the rest of the network to know how your experience went.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Anita, for your question. And thank you, Bear, for your response. Right. So I have 2 hands that I'm seeing on the screen right now. So maybe because already, Lucia, you had already commented. So maybe I would have to let you to say whatever that is you have. So over to you. You're muted.
Of course, we have to keep in mind that no matter who the new president is, if it is the former president or a new one, we are talking about human rights, okay? Health, eventually, it's a human right that is part of the right to life. And we have to take that into account. No matter who is in the government, this is a message that we should deliver at all times. Besides, I think that the information that is contained in the IDF Atlas will come really helpful to show the figures and the reality of a true silent pandemic as diabetes is. So yes, I also encourage you to continue and carry on with your advocacy. And as Beatriz said, this is truly the best moment to do so.
Thank you so much. I think for the next question, before I take another hand up, I would like to maybe give this for the people that had shared their questions on the chat, which we encouraged you at the first of the meeting. So I think this one is directed to Evie. So I'm just going to read those two questions to you so that you can respond. So the first question was from Christian. He said that are there any statistics on diabetes complications per region in the Diabetes Atlas? And another question from Etienne, the question was, there is an issue to interpret the Atlas. We need to know, we need more training. How should you help us? Over to you, Evie.
Yes, thank you, Tino, and thank you for your questions. For the first one, yes, it was a limitation in the time, but we have diabetes complications, of course, not in every edition, because we always have to take into account if there is enough data. So usually there is not enough data every 2 years to put that in. So the last data was in the 9th edition, and we have this data in the data portal. So if I can share very quickly my screen, I won't take time. Before I was showing you Australia, for example, at the end, we also have complications of diabetes. These numbers are from the last analysis, which was the 9th edition, the 2019. So going here in the country that you're interested in, like I showed you at the beginning, at the end, if there is available data on complications, we give the numbers. So Atlas is all about epidemiology and numbers. So, sorry, I haven't said. So you can see here at the end of my screen, where I show you Australia a couple of minutes ago, at the end, you see complications of diabetes. So you can also find those data there. Whenever, of course, they are available, they're not always available. So, let me stop sharing my screen. And the second question, I think, was the second question was that, yes, that you need more training. Now, I understand that it's not easy in 10 minutes to find out how to explore the Atlas data. Yes, that's a good idea, maybe to focus more on organizing some activities for training or to show people how to find the data. I have to say that it's quite, we have tried to simplify the messages. So when you open the book or when you go to the website or when you go to the resources, always the first material that we give is some key messages with icons, some, let's say, easy to digest. So it's not that we dig into the methodology, dig into the data, and you open this book and you don't understand. Of course, if you go down the pages, we have to give all the specifics, but usually the first pages on every edition or in the website or in the PowerPoint presentation or where you go to the data portal, they're quite straightforward, and we try to give the key messages right at the front, so you don't have to dig into the book and read the whole thing to get the numbers you want. Let's say how many people have diabetes. And at the end of the book, we have the table with all the countries that you can go per countries and find the data. In the data portal, when you open the page, there is a small intro that you can go through it before you go and explore the data portal that shows you how to use it. And yes, sometimes the best way is just to go to the website and spend some time there playing with the web page and the data portal. And I don't think it's difficult if you stay a little bit and download the material and go through the first pages or the first slides to find the key messages. But yes, it's always good to organize some events or some activities of training. And thank you for the question.
Great, thank you so much. So maybe before I give Alexandra to share his experience, I would start to give the spot to Ethel Chima, if you may, because I've been seeing your hand up. So if you'd like to take it over to you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry, it's afternoon here in Nigeria. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I want to know if I want to understand how I'm trying to bring the government's mind to sponsoring a bill in the National Assembly, and I've been able to reach a politician, but I don't know how to put a bill together or how to even lobby to get their attention for them to sponsor a bill on how they can spend more on health in Nigeria, focus on diabetes, make them change policies. I want to sponsor such a bill. So how can I go? Can you advise me how I can go about it? Because my spirit tells me I can make that move because the politician says I should come, and I don't also want to be used. I was so happy when I saw this webinar coming on. So that's one. Then two, I noticed that some of our countries, like my country, Nigeria, my government is not participating so much in activity that has to do with diabetes, like the Global Diabetes Compact. How can I get Nigeria government involved, like the Ghanaian government is involved? I feel Ethiopia is involved. Ethiopia is involved. I see other African countries involved. Nigeria has the largest population and larger number of people living with diabetes. But my government is not doing enough and not contributing that part. I want to get them very much involved the way I am involved. Thank you. Did you hear me?
Yeah, thank you. Very nice to see you in this call. Yeah, I mean, I would like to respond to those, and I think both of the questions are very related, and probably the answer is the same to both of them. So you were talking about a bill at the National Assembly. So that's quite an ambitious goal. So you need to start small. You cannot really start by proposing that. So you need to start with smaller steps. And I'm thinking, yeah, probably the best thing that you can do at the moment. And I don't know if there will be also national elections anytime soon, because if there will be elections, you can start preparing for that and do what we have suggested Anita to do in her country. So when there are elections coming, it's really a great moment because policymakers are very, very receptive to meeting with different groups and listening to different requests. So that would be a great moment. In the meantime, until there are elections in your country, I really recommend you to do some research on which policymakers from your country, which parliamentarians can be sympathetic to the diabetes cause, let's say. So which of them are more interested in health? Is any of them living with diabetes? Because if you have a parliamentarian that is living with diabetes, that person is definitely going to listen more to you because they already share your struggles, they know the issues, and probably they know that the country is not doing enough. So if you can bring on board at least one parliamentarian living with diabetes, and I'm sure that there will be one parliamentarian living with diabetes because Nigeria is a big country. So I guess you have a big chamber with many policymakers in there. So I really recommend you to do that research. You do not need to do it on your own. You can actually, join your community. Maybe you know some of these parliamentarians somehow. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting thing that you can do as a group with your colleagues on your diabetes association. That's something that you can do together. We really recommend you to start just creating a league with one parliamentarian, with two, with three. If you start creating that, it can get bigger. Those people may have higher responsibilities at some point in an upcoming government. You can start slowly with that, but definitely you need an entry point into the parliament. And that entry point is a parliamentarian. So the moment you establish that connection, it's going to be much easier. And maybe in a few years' time, you are able to propose that bill But first you need to enter and you need to start speaking with parliamentarians. So we really recommend you that. You know that you have a lot of resources from IDF that you can use. We have a guide about how to use data for advocacy. There are a lot of tips that you can use in there, and definitely use the figures from the Atlas, because that's very important. And especially when speaking with policymakers, it's a pity that they do not listen that much to lived experience. Sometimes they pay more attention to the financial part. So let's use those numbers. We have them in the Atlas. Evi has shared them. So we are spending a lot on treating diabetes complications that we could prevent. So why are we doing that? And it's the same in every country. I do not think any single country really is an exception to that. So we really recommend that to you, to do that research. And if you have any question in the future, you know how to find us, and we will be very happy to give you more feedback then.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I hope that they've been answered. That's great. But if you still have follow-up questions, please know that you can also send them via email to advocacy@idf.org, which I believe everybody has got that email, which is great. So I don't have to put it on the chat. Anyways, for the sake of our time, I'd like maybe Alexander to share his experience. He once shared it on the chat. So Alexander, if you can come on the screen, share your video and share with us the experience that you're talking about what IDF said about South Africa, or maybe Africa as a whole.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Forgive me, I'm not going to put my camera on because in South Africa, we have a monumental power crisis. So it means that I'm drawing on my own personal data to take part in this meeting. And I'm sure Kirsten, who's heads up our Diabetes Advocacy NGO in South Africa, would support what I'm saying around our power issue. I think that I will acknowledge Kirsten. She heads up Diabetes Advocacy, an NGO, and there is another NGO called Sweet Life, and they've done absolutely fantastic work in supporting people living with diabetes in in efforts to influence stakeholders, health stakeholders, and that feeds back into an organization, also an NGO, the Diabetes Alliance. But my concern, as someone that's lived with diabetes since I was 5 years old, I tested my urine using a Bunsen burner in the 70s. So I've lived and I've walked the hard life of someone living with diabetes. I've got a friend who lives in a rural part of South Africa. He went to a clinic. He was diagnosed type 1 diabetic. He went to a rural clinic with a sore on his toe, and he was turned away and told to come back after Christmas. He was on the list for a below-the-knee amputation. I talked him through what he was entitled to and his rights. And to cut a long story short, he's had his toe amputated. He's had the front part of his foot cut off, but he still has his 2 legs. Now, my concern is that while so much is taking place in South Africa, as I said in my message, a lot of the efforts are around diabetes are grouped with overall non-communicable diseases. So where does one start? And this is a call and a question to you the International Diabetes Federation as the umbrella body, where does one start to try and prevent the experiences that my friend experienced? Because without my influence, he would have had his leg amputated below the knee. Where do we start? What can we do?
Hi, Alexandra, and thanks a lot for sharing that experience. So look, the situation, I mean, it's so complicated. I was counting how many people we were now in this call. We are 28, and probably we are 28 people from 20 different countries. Probably in our 20 different countries, there are 20 different healthcare systems. It's so complicated yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to respond to that. And obviously, you know better the situation in South Africa. What I can tell you is that obviously, from the IDF perspective, the main focus, let's say, of IDF advocacy is to advocate for essential care. So we want to achieve universal health coverage in every country. That's also, as you know, a sustainable development goal that we aim to achieve by 2030. WHO also is doing a lot on that. There are different diabetes coverage targets also to be achieved by then. And that's the minimum. That's what we are asking from all governments. There is no excuse. They really need to get to that point to offer at least the essential coverage to everyone living with diabetes. Then, obviously, in many countries, universal health coverage is a reality or it's very advanced. So in those cases, we can actually advocate for newer technologies. So what we always say is that we advocate for the best possible care. The best possible care in Zimbabwe, where Tinotenda is, or in Nigeria, where Osarenko Air is, or in the US, where EVI is. I'm in Spain, so it's completely different. So the best possible care will depend on what is the capacity of your country. And as you were saying also in your comment, in South Africa, there are a lot of different private insurances. So yeah, unfortunately, the coverage that people care and the support that people care will depend on the money that they have and the insurance that they can pay. So I think the focus really of advocacy in your country should be on requesting the government to at least by the governmental scheme, provide the essential care.
Yeah.
That's the minimum. And that's what all the governments have committed to the Sustainable Development Goals. So actually you can use that as a hook. So the South African government said that they will do their best. So universal health coverage is a reality by 2030. So why is people living with diabetes being left out of that? Exactly. So I could say that's really the hook. We know that in South Africa, there is a very active diabetes community. We have a lot of young leaders, of Blue Circle Voices. The IDF members are also very active. So we really recommend you to work together because you represent a variety of people that have different access to healthcare. So I think you together can actually advocate for this basic coverage that everyone must have. And as we have said before, we would be very keen to support you with more tips or with more feedback. Once you have had a discussion, because I understand that you probably are working with more people on advocacy in your country and you want to discuss this. But yeah, we could really focus on that. I mean, you are not going to be able to achieve a lot with some private insurances. You really need to target the government. They are the ones who can change policy. So please target that.
Yeah, I mean, just to come in here, I mean, thank you very much for that input. And I really, there is a lot of work that's being done to support public health care and to support the diabetes problem in public health, but it's not enough. It's not enough. And my experience, and Kirsten, who's on this call from Diabetes Advocacy, she may or may not agree with me, but reaching into the public sector so that people with a sore on their foot are not turned away. A type 1 diabetic with a sore on their foot, they cannot be turned away.
Yeah, we absolutely agree with you. And it's, I mean, one wonders how can that happen? And it looks that after COVID also, because of all the stress that all the health systems went through, it's even worse than before. So yeah, I mean, we really need to make the point of how important primary attention and prevention is. That's definitely the key to prevent more complications, to be able also to relieve the system. So it's possible to treat everyone that goes with an emergency. There is a comment by Kirsten, who is also from South Africa, in the chat. Bridget from Sweet Life is running a campaign on Know Your Rights. That's also very important because a lot of people do not know that, by law, they are entitled to a certain type of care. So yes, it's recommended you that you reach out to Bridget. So yeah, we assume that you already have her contact details. If you don't, please reach out to us and we can definitely connect the two of you.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely do have Bridget's details. I think that's great. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Alexandra. And yeah, for the sake of our time, I would like to read one of that's Ruslan's experience that he shared on the chat. I even tried to reach out to him to say if you'd want to read it, but since there was no response, I would do it myself. So we in Kazakhstan are currently expanding our insulin pump program to patients with diabetes over 18 years of age. We are also currently trying to develop a pilot project with the government of the country that will allow children to receive continuous glucose monitoring systems. Wow, this is amazing. This is what is happening in Kazakhstan. So if we would have appreciated if everyone had shared these experiences so that we'd know what is happening everywhere. But thank you so much, everyone, for sharing experiences, for asking questions. That was great. So I think for this time, in this juncture, I would love for Bruno to share the slide.
Just before that, sorry for interrupting, but I received a private message from San Ajmal connecting from Pakistan. And she's unfortunately facing some connectivity issues, but she said that she has collected access data for type 1 diabetes. So far, they have been able to collect over 500 responses. The questionnaire was developed by a number of experts, but it didn't carry out a statistical validation. So on that note, she wants to know, and I think this goes specifically to Evie, does it matter for data-driven advocacy if this survey is not statistic validated?
So, I mean, everybody, they can do their survey and they trust their data. But if I talk about the Atlas, the only way for us to trust our sources is to be published data, going through reviewing, if they have statistical analysis, because then everybody will come and, question your data. So sometimes it's good to have the statistical analysis because then you give the right to everybody to question your data. Now, I understand it's difficult to collect or difficult, maybe if they do that, maybe to collaborate with the local university, or usually people are open to this kind of collaborations and run a statistical analysis or go through that process because, gives credibility to your data. Because if your data, they're not validated with any way, anyone can come and question them. So, and you don't want to go down that road. So at least for the Atlas, we have to do it because we collect data from around the world on such a big scale that there is no other way. And we want to show that we have the credibility. That's why we publish even the Atlas data. We have the paper, so nobody can come back to us and question, because there is many people that they don't like the numbers, or they like the numbers, or they find them too low or too high. So the only way to make your case is that I got the best possible resources. They were published, they were reviewed, they were statistically important. We publish our data, so sometimes this has to be done so people don't come back and question you. So my advice is always try to find a collaboration from a university or somebody that has the knowledge and help you, you know, to run the statistics, so you have also to make a case with your data.
So really quickly, she's asking if at this stage, if the data that has already been collected, if it still can be validated or not. Your mic is closed, Avi.
Yeah. So yes, that you need a data analyst, or I don't know, in their team, that they collected their data. If they have a data analyst, somebody that can run a linear regression to see, you know, it's not just a poll, or yeah, it can be done now. I don't know how the data were collected. I can, if she can share some information with me via email, I can always try to help, or direct her to some local, maybe people we collaborate in the Atlas, epidemiology in the area. But yeah, I cannot tell more if I haven't seen the data, or I don't want to jump in and start saying things. But I know that usually, unfortunately, sometimes you need that in order to not to let people to question your research or your survey, unfortunately.
Thank you, Avi. Sorry, Tino, over to you now.
Awesome. I think if I may have the slides back on. Great. Okay, so I'm seeing my face again. Right, I think before we do the closing remarks, we would love to share maybe another poll, so that everybody please participate on this one, so know if this was helpful to you. Bruno, the poll, please. So I don't know if I should read the question for you, but I think everybody can. Thank you. People already responded. And please be honest. You can even say no if it wasn't. That is welcome too. I mean, that's why we have that answer. Unfortunately, I cannot put my input. Thank you. We're having more. Oh, okay. Any more responses?
This occasion, so there will be people who are listening to the session now, so they are watching after this session took place live. So if you have any questions, so if after this session you still have questions about how can I distinguish advocacy, how can I include an advocacy component to my project, how can I use the Atlas, please feel free to reach out to us. Yeah, we are always there. And depending on the feedback we get, maybe we will have another session in the future about how to better use the Atlas, etc., with Evie, with more detailed information, because today it was just, let's say, an initial approach.
Right, thank you. And it seems we have been hanging on this slide. I mean, there are no more responses for the past 10 seconds. I don't know if everyone is on his screen, his or her screen right now. I don't know if it would be fair if we move on to the next slide. Yeah, thank you, Bruno. Do you feel that? Right, and this one seems to have had maybe one additional response. So people are back. Thank you so much. And maybe we could move on to the next. Oh, we had 2, which is great. Thank you so much, Bruno. If we can close these pools. So everybody, I would like to encourage you, because this is one of the things that we would want, the IDF team wants you to have these. So if you can, maybe you can scan this barcode that is showing on your screen, or if you can download the IDF guide to data-driven advocacy, which this talk was all about. And I think you can get more facts from people sharing from their experiences, because I think it's a super packed resource. So if everyone can download it, if you do not have it already, but I know maybe some of you already have it because they've been with the IDF for some time. But if you do not have, please, would really appreciate if you download this and would know that you'll be guided on your advocacy as you continue to do what you do. So I think we'll give it maybe more, yeah, okay. I think this is now, we have reached the end of our discussion, or should I say our exclusive session of IDF Advocacy Academy with young leaders in diabetes, Blue Cycle Voices, and IDF members who were part of this session, and also other people that were not able to attend. They would find this. Please tell them, remind them that they'll find the slide or maybe the recording on the IDF's YouTube channel. So the recording and the slides, they'll be shared with everybody who registered for this in a few days. And if you don't receive them, maybe in the next 10 days, this is according to me, in the next 10 days, please reach out to that advocacy via the email that is showing on your screen. And please respond to the feedback questionnaire so that you know, because I know not everybody is going to say it was useful, it was helpful. So the IDF advocacy team would want to know how best they can improve on the next, because I say that they're going to host these series with different topics, different subjects, so that people can get really the help that they need so that we can advocate across the globe, across the world. So with all being said, and thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough for your participation, your commenting, your questions, and everything. And also a huge thanks to the advocacy team for giving me the opportunity to moderate this session. It was just great. So everybody, if we do not have any last, I don't know, because usually after a meeting, we'd say any business other than the things that we've been discussing about, if you'd like to share on the chat, or if you want to watch the mic, I think we can stop the recording. But with all being said, I would rest my case and leave it back to Bear, Bruno, and everyone else who would want to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Tino, for the moderation, and thank you also, Avi, from the IDF Epidemiology Department for joining us today. I think people were very, very interested in knowing more about the Atlas, so I think we need to think about doing another session together, Avi.
Yes, we need more time to solve. We can spend the whole day, but yeah, I can always help a little bit more time. But yes, I was happy to be here, and this is why we do that with the Atlas. That was the main purpose, to give the numbers so we can drive change. So I'm happy always to be around. Thank you.
Thank you all, and have a lovely weekend. Until next.
Bye, Bruno.